day, coming back to your high school career
Yes.
and growing up in the Maine, you talked about being bloodied. Became street smart. Was this being a Jewish kid in Quebec? Were you experiencing anti-Semitism, having to hold your own?
It was extraordinarily anti-Semitic in that day. The Maine is an interesting street because it divided eastern and western sides of Montreal. In fact, the addresses in Montreal go from the east from St. Lawrence and from the west on St. Lawrence. So that starts at one on either side. And the west side was Anglo Montreal. And the French and the east side was Franco Montreal, more or less. It was mixed, obviously. I was one of 3 kids on the block that was Jewish. And we were not a popular people, shall we say. And there was this business still very, very strongly about who, in fact, crucified Christ. And the church was not necessarily happy with us forever. John came along, and then John Paul came along, and things changed. And there was no Jewish state, which made for a big difference. So until 1948, anti-Semitism was rife in Montreal. And it was difficult. It was difficult from that vantage point. So basically, you stayed on the west side, although I lived on the east side of the Maine. You stayed on the west side of the street, and beyond that, because our schools were on the west side. But you learned to handle yourself only because you had to. When I was about 15, I got into my last fight. And I hit someone who fell and hurt himself badly and didn't move. And I thought that I had killed someone. And my life, in my mind, came to an end. At that point, I swore I would never again strike anyone in anger. And I haven't. Not even the kids. Never smacked each other. Because that was the most frightening thing that ever happened to me in terms of my doing something to someone that would be irreversible and would change my life forever. So that from that point on, it's been calm and cool. Living on the Maine as well, the streetcar ran all the way from past my house. When we finally moved when I was 17, I couldn't sleep because there was no noise of streetcars passing the house. But it went all the way down to the harbor. So I spent a lot of my time in my, I guess, early teens at the harbor, where I was adopted by some of the longshoremen, this strange kid sort of hanging around. And they gave me my own hook. And I used no hooks. I found out what that meant. And they were remarkable people. I learned about them as a different breed of individuals, not like the people with whom I had dinner with, if you will, the friends we had and so on. Not quite like the people on the street that were so terribly unpleasant in many ways. These people accepted them, and I became one of them.